What's up, guys? I'm Jen Lada, and this is episode 1 of Paper Trail. Let me give you a little bit of the backstory. I was cleaning out my office. We've lived in Wisconsin for like 5 years, so a lot of this stuff has moved with me. But I worked in Milwaukee for 7 years back in the early 2000s, and that meant I covered a ton of Wisconsin sports. 2008 in particular was an unreal year to be a Wisconsin sports fan. Major Brewers storylines. Of course, you had the transition from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers with the Green Bay Packers. It was wild. So I found a ton of old Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel sports pages that I kept. So this series is going to be about the Milwaukee Brewers, that 2008 season. And it begins with March 31st, 2008 opening day. The Brewers had a major battle that season with the Chicago Cubs. You have to remember, in 2007, the Brewers had their first winning season since like 1992. In fact, that 15-year stretch of not having a winning season was one of the longest in Major League Baseball at the time. So the Brewers had a lot of optimism headed into 2018. You got Ben Sheets as your starter. You've got Prince Fielder, Ryan Braun, Ricky Weeks, Bill Hall, all of those guys in the lineups. And in the offseason, they went out and got Eric Gagne. Now, Eric Gagne was a really good closer in baseball at the time, but according to this article, and I did not remember this, the Brewers signed Gagne in December, 3 days before the 32-year-old was named in the Mitchell Report. Gagne was said to have received 2 shipments of human growth hormone in 2004, the year he completed the major league record with 152 saves over a 3-year span. I remember that being a major talking point for the Milwaukee Brewers. Of course, they go out, get this closer. He was going to lock up their bullpen, a guy who had had a lot of success.
It was fast and the location was perfect.
But then there was all of this controversy surrounding him because his name was in the Mitchell Report. The projected lineup for the Brewers versus the Cubs to open the 2008 season. You had Ricky Weeks at second base, Tony Gwynn Jr. I totally forgot that Tony Gwynn Jr. was a member of the Milwaukee Brewers. Of course, his dad, Tony Gwynn Sr. Prince Fielder at first, Ryan Braun in left, Bill Hall at third, Corey Hart, sunglasses at night in right field, J.J. Hardy at shortstop, Ben Sheets on the mound, and Jason Kendall behind the plate. So what I remember most about that game, it was of course at Wrigley Field. That's where they opened the season. And as I mentioned, it was Ben Sheets versus Carlos Zambrano. Both of those pitchers were on one that afternoon. Nobody scored in this game until the 9th inning when Ryan Braun and Corey Hart ended up putting 3 runs on the board for the Brewers in the top of the 9th. So then the Cubs respond. Eric Gagne with his first save opportunity in the first game with him as a member of the Milwaukee Brewers. He gives up 2 hits immediately, and then Kosuke Fukudome goes out there and hits a 3-run bomb to tie this game up. It would go to extra innings. The Brewers ended up winning it. I think it was a Tony Gwynn Jr. hit that ended up giving the Brewers the win, 4-3. But that really would be a preview for how these two teams would battle as the season went on. One other thing I don't think people remember from that 2008 season, of course, we remember Craig Counsell as manager of the Milwaukee Brewers because he was for as long as he was. That year, he was a player, and he was pinch hitting for the Brewers in that game. I think he went 1 for 1 for the afternoon. It's just crazy to think about Craig Counsell as a player for the Crew and not the manager who is now on the north side in Chicago. 2008 was an unbelievable year for the Milwaukee Brewers. Of course, we'll talk during this series about how CC Sabathia joined the team, how Ben Sheets had some injuries, how Ned Yost was fired with like 12 games remaining in the season and Dale Sweem took over, and of course, how the Brewers ended up punching their ticket to the postseason, a first since they had done it back in the 80s. So stay with us all series long as we go through the 2008 Milwaukee Brewers season with Paper Trail. I'm Jen Lada.